Hello everybody, it's Vert here. Welcome back to another benchmark. Today we're going to be trying out Chained Together with the GTX 1650, which might sound a little weird because you would think a game like this runs pretty easily, but in my experience with my 3060 Ti playing at 1440p with pretty high settings, it's been pretty demanding, so I thought we'd give it a benchmark here today since it does seem to be quite an intensive game for the GPU to run. I am pairing this up of course with the Intel Core i7-4790K, which is over a decade old at this point, but is usually more than fine in 90 to 95% of the games that I try out here with the GTX 1650. I also want to note that I have the GDDR6 edition of the card, which is slightly faster. And with that, I'm gonna jump on into the settings. I do have the latest Nvidia drivers installed, so let's begin. And so to begin with, I'm going to be playing at 1080p. I've got it in windowed mode because I am playing on a larger resolution monitor. And if you play this game in full screen, it does go ahead and default to the monitor's largest resolution. So I'm going to be playing in windowed mode. Doesn't seem to make a difference here for this game. Also, I do want to mention that I am using the DX11 version of the game. It's recommended since this is an older PC, so it's recommended to use DX11 for some better performance or more stable performance. So 1080p, you can see that I am using the ultra quality here to start with, which I'm not sure how long we're going to stick with. I will mention that the AA, it does have higher options here, but they're pretty demanding, and TAA looks perfectly fine for me, at least in this game. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on in and begin benchmarking. So I've just started the game. I'm down here on the floor on the bottom of the map. I do want to mention that the start of the game is the most demanding, so I'm going to go ahead and make my way up there for a couple of minutes because it is less impactful up there. Typically, the higher you go up to a certain point, the performance does get better. So basically, the further up you get, the better the performance gets up to a finite point. It doesn't actually just keep getting better and better at performance. But yeah, down here is the most intensive area, which makes sense because it's got the most stuff on the map, it would seem. At least I think it does. You know, you're at ground level. So yeah, once you get a little bit further away from this place, your performance does get better here. But yeah, you can see that I am completely GPU bound, and it is going to be pretty hard for me to play like this because obviously it's not the highest FPS. I wouldn't want to play this game at 30 frames, and yeah, I would like to play at least 60 FPS in this game, but I'm going to play a little bit here, and I'm going to get further up so we can see the performance once I get a little bit further away from the floor. Alright, so I've been playing now for about 5 minutes, as you can see, and I've managed to get about 250 meters up, and I'm just going to quickly jump on here, and you can see that my FPS has increased a little bit. I'm playing around 40. Now, I will say that my FPS fluctuated anywhere from 35 up to nearly 60 FPS in certain situations when I was actually playing throughout the entire game there, so it does fluctuate quite a bit as to what FPS you're going to get in this game, and it does seem to be very much GPU dependent and very much does depend on how much is going on in the area. As you can see now, my FPS is around mid 40s, but yeah, there was a lot of sections there that I was actually playing at around 35 FPS, which for me didn't feel too good because you can see I'm back at around 35 FPS, but yeah, it doesn't feel too good to play like this because the input delay is quite high, and I actually found that playing at around the 30 FPS range was pretty difficult here for me. So yeah, I'm gonna say that ultra settings at 1080p is really not going to be playable here for the 1650, and yeah, it really surprised me how intensive this game is to run because it's not exactly a graphical masterpiece, and even with my 3060 Ti at 1440p, it's still very intensive there. So I'm going to go ahead and try out another preset, and we'll see how it runs. So now we're going to go ahead and try out the high settings. You can see I am playing at 1080p still, and I've pretty much changed everything to the high settings. There is no actual presets in this game, but I can go ahead and manually change everything. So yeah, let's go ahead and see what the performance is like here on the high settings. So going from the absolute ultra settings to high, I honestly can't see that much of a difference in terms of how the game actually looks. You know, it got a little bit brighter because I think we actually reduced how many shadows we have, or the shadows just became a little bit brighter. You can see now that my FPS in this situation at least has jumped up to 60, but we were at the mid 40s there. I'm going to definitely get that was not very good. Let me go ahead and just restart that real quick. But you can see like I am at the mid 40s here, but this area clearly is less intensive because I gained 20 FPS, which is what I told you earlier, that this game fluctuates pretty heavily depending on what situation you're currently in the game. But we are completely GPU bound still, so it does seem like the game really is not very much intensive for the CPU, but it is pretty much all about the GPU performance. You can see my RAM is also under 9 gigs usage, which is pretty low amounts of RAM usage. And I am using DDR3 RAM for this system, of course, because it is an older system. It can't use DDR4 RAM. But in terms of actual GPU VRAM usage as well, it is allocating 3.4 gigs, which is within the range of the 4 gigs, of course, but it's only actually utilizing 1.4 gigs to play this game, which is not a huge surprise. Like I said, this game is really not very much a graphical masterpiece. It's a very fun game. I've actually completed it the other night, but in terms of like how hard it is to run, it's really easy to run this game. Other than the GPU, it seems like actual like GPU power usage or GPU usage itself is just really intensive for this game for whatever reason. I really don't understand why it's so intensive to run this game, but it really is. And you can see here, while I've been playing on high, my FPS has been all over the place. Wow, I really was not paying attention there, but my FPS really has been all over the place here. And you know, 1% lows, it stays there. 1% lows have been down to the just under 40 FPS range, but my averages have been around 60 in all honesty, which is pretty nice. But you know, when it does drop below the 60 FPS range, it doesn't feel good. I'm being really greedy here, don't mind me. I'm trying to be like super greedy. It's basically just playing like an idiot. But yeah, I would like to stay above the 60 FPS range all the time. You know, that would be the absolute ideal. Don't, please. Oh, thank God you can't get pushed off while that's happening. But we're going to change preset once I get up here, and we're going to try out medium and see if we can stay at this 60 FPS range at medium all the time. Would be quite nice if I can, right? Alright, so now we're at 1080p medium settings here, still using TAA on the for the AA basically, and I think we're going to stick with that pretty much all the time here, perhaps. But yeah, let's jump back in, see how it runs. Okay, so now I'm playing at the medium settings here, as you can see, and we definitely did lose quite a lot of quality going to medium from the high settings, but the FPS does seem to be a little bit more stable. It's staying around the 60 FPS to 70 FPS range, because I have been playing for a few minutes now with the medium settings. But yeah, we're still completely GPU bound, as you can see here. It's still at that 100% GPU usage, even at medium settings at around the 60 to 70 FPS range, which honestly might be the sweet spot for this game. I would personally tinker around quite a bit and find a nice balance between all of the settings, because it doesn't make sense to, you know, just lower them all to medium or increase them all to high. You might as well find a nice middle ground, and I might try that here at the end of the video. But yeah, it does look like at medium you're going to get around 60 to 70 FPS on average. It is fluctuating. Sometimes it does drop down to the mid 50s, as you saw there, and jumps up even to the mid 70s, but for the most part it's sticking around that 60 to 70 FPS range where it actually matters, right? It is quite intensive here, clearly for the water maybe, so maybe at the water sections it's going to be really intensive. Plus there's a lot of lighting here, which is definitely having quite an impact on the GPU here. And this whole time while I've been playing, CPU usage has been anywhere from 25% jumping up to like 40% sometimes, and maybe you've caught a glimpse of it fluctuating a little bit higher than that at times. But honestly, I haven't noticed the GPU usage drop from 100% usage pretty much this whole time while I've actually been playing. Only when like resetting, you know, the map, because I fell off and just had to like teleport back up. That's the only time I've seen GPU usage drop, and it's because the game's loading. So yeah, it's other than that, it's been smooth sailing here for the CPU. But I'm gonna go ahead and say medium, at least in this area, is actually not that playable. We're only at like 40 something FPS actually. But it is just in this area, it would seem. It is definitely, this area is definitely more intensive than being outside and playing most of the map. So as long as it's only around 40 FPS in these kinds of areas, I think it's okay. Once it drops to like 40 something FPS in areas where we need the frames, like here, it's not so good. Just gonna go ahead and jump down. There we go. Yeah, even dropping down to the 50s range here actually, so even medium settings is going to struggle in certain situations in this game with the GPU. Oh my god, nearly. So why don't we go ahead and try out some even lower settings here once I get past this little section, because this is quite a dangerous area. Alrighty, now we're using the low settings here at 1080p. Hopefully we can stick above this 60 FPS range all the time here now. with the lower settings, because that would be nice to see. We're still using TAA though, which you could technically lower that down, but honestly, I don't think it's worth going to FXAA, and definitely not worth turning it off. So yeah, let's see what this runs like here. Alrighty, so I've been playing around a little bit here, just for about 30 seconds with the low settings, and honestly, I saw it go up to like 110 FPS for a moment, which is kind of insane. Still completely GPU bound here at this kind of FPS, but even just dropping down to 80 frames, it's still really good. Obviously, we lost a crap ton of quality, but at the same time, the game did get very bright, so it's kind of like, it does look a lot worse, but it also is easier to see what you're doing. It's easier to see things, not as much darkness anymore in the game. But yeah, we definitely lost a lot of visual quality, so I will try and find like a hybrid settings setup, you know, for the game to stay above 60 FPS, but also to not look so terrible. And I know which setting makes the game a hell of a lot brighter, and it's actually not shadows, it's post-processing. If you go from medium to low post-processing, it makes the game a lot brighter, but also you lose a lot of quality. I don't know which way to go, I completely forgot, but we'll figure it out. I think it's up this way. Yeah, no, okay. But yeah, like I was saying, post-processing is the setting that makes the game a hell of a lot brighter, but you do lose a lot of quality. We're actually, we jumped up to 120 FPS in that area. I actually remember the way to go, because I completed this game a couple nights ago, so I actually remember the way. It took me a second, but we got there. Let's not go into that. But yeah, very surprising. It's going from medium to low is a huge performance increase. Now, you can see there the 1% lows did drop down to 40 something at some point, but I don't remember when. I didn't really notice it, in all honesty, and it wasn't when I was reloading the map. It was just the FPS just dropped down to there while playing, because I haven't reloaded the map actually. Oh my god, I nearly just killed myself. Let's just jump on this thing and just do that and almost fall again. But yeah, it looks like the FPS on low settings is going to fluctuate anywhere from the mid-70s in the most extremely worst situations up to 120 FPS roughly. But realistically, on average, it's sticking around 80 to 90 FPS here on the low settings, which for a game like this, completely fine. Anything above 60 is going to feel fine for probably 99% of the people. And I've got no doubts, if you're somebody who's used to using this kind of a GPU, you are very used to you know, not having the best performance, or you're pretty used to having games looking pretty ugly. I myself played, for the most part, with very low settings. I'm in most PC games, so I'm very accustomed to low settings, believe it or not, in a lot of games. So I understand, I feel your pain, you know, with the low settings. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for low. We're going to try and find a hybrid setup now to stay above 60. And actually, in this area with low settings, I'm only getting 60 frames. That is not reassuring. That was a terrible time to go. I can't believe how that worked. What the hell? That was like the worst time to go, and it worked out. Yeah, we dropped down to 60 there, which is not, that is not, that's not giving me much hope for the hybrid settings, but we'll give it a go. See if we can make the game look somewhat decent. Alrighty, so I've been messing around for about 5 minutes with the settings and trying to find a sweet spot to get around 60 FPS. It does sometimes still drop a little bit, so feel free to experiment yourself. Also, if you have the GDDR5 edition of the graphics card, you might need to play with some lower settings as well, because this one is a little bit faster than those cards usually. But I've gone ahead and chosen medium shadows, medium AA. I'm not going to go over every single one. You can just kind of look at them yourself. I put the texture quality up to ultra because we have the VRAM for it, and it doesn't seem to be much, if any, of a performance impact, so makes sense. So I'm just going to leave that at ultra. Got post-processing quality also set to medium. Pretty much I've left the effects quality, reflections, and view distance all on low, as view distance. For a game like this, you just need to know what's going on right in front of you, basically. You don't really need to know. You don't really need to look at things that are too far away. You just need to look at what you're doing, right? Reflections and effects can be nice, but we just don't have the graphics card power to, you know, spare. So yeah, let's jump back in and see how this runs. I've been playing with it, so I kind of know already. And as you can see, we have restored some quality back to the game. It does drop sometimes below 60 ever so slightly, but for a game like this, you can probably get away with playing in the mid-50s in all honesty and still have a very good time here. I'm gonna try and get up this area. Now you can see my FPS is now up to 70. It fluctuates quite heavily. So what I did is basically, when I was choosing the settings, I aimed my camera down for the worst possible scenario, because that's probably going to be when you're going to get the lowest FPS, is when you look down. You see, you just lose a hell of a lot of FPS looking down in this game, which does make sense. Like, you know, you're looking at the whole map when you look down there essentially. But as you can see, still completely GPU bound, of course. And it is now not the worst looking game in the world, and it also runs decently, right? It's not running too terribly. Almost fell there, don't mind me. And I am playing in a private lobby, by the way, so no, I haven't got really unlucky and no one's joining me. I just I made my own private lobby for this, just so I could, you know, benchmark it without anybody getting annoyed that I'm constantly going AFK. Up to 80 FPS here, not bad at all. And that's going to be the benchmark for the Chain Together game with the GTX 1650. Hopefully you found some use out of this. If you did, go ahead and leave me a like, subscribe, and take care of yourselves, guys. Let me know what you thought about this benchmark in the description, or in the comments rather. And until next time, goodbye for now.